Guys, we're working with our friends at DraftKings, the official gaming partner of the UFC, to put you at the center of the action with a shot at $1 million in total prizes. Download DraftKings and enter the UFC 261 Daily Fantasy Contest. Do that right now. There's millions of dollars in total prizes up for grabs all week, and I'm going to tell you how to play. Draft 6 fighters from Saturday's card. Stay below the $50,000 salary cap and rack up fantasy points for advances, takedowns, knockdowns, and more. Full rules and scoring can be found at DraftKings.com/MMA. I'm picking Usman over Masvidal. If you're a new user, go to dkng.co/Sonnen. Use the promo code Sonnen when signing up to get a shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. My official prediction for Usman versus Masvidal is going to be and still. Look, I already know what happens when Usman fights Masvidal because I watched it happen. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, and I only bring that to you because it's the same guys in the same weight class contesting the same rules for the same championship. It's one of those things. Now, even though in sport you can have something different, and I will acknowledge that was a very competitive fight, and not to mention the storyline of Masvidal not getting a full training camp is very real. But I do have to wonder, how unprepared was he, right? I mean, the mere fact that Masvidal, on, was it 6 days notice, 7 days notice, was able to get to another continent, get licensed, do all of his media, stay within a bubble, and make weight. That's very relevant. The fact that he could do all of those, 24 hours worth of travel alone. So what are we talking about? Was it 6 days? Let's just call it 6. That means the weigh-ins are in 5. But you got one day is just to travel. I mean, look at how many days you got. And he, with the absence of a proper training facility, was still able to make weight. Look, I think he was in shape. I think he was training more than the story has said. And I think that he left with a whole bunch of credit when the reality was Usman did the same thing. And while Usman had the benefit of knowing he had a fight at that date, of knowing where he needed to be, of knowing where his weight had to be, he did not have the benefit of knowing who his opponent was. And it was a very different stylistic matchup. I only offer you that because in many ways, Usman did the same thing that Masvidal did. Now, look, I like the storyline. I will just tell you as an athlete, I've had and I've observed the opposite effect. I can remember through the college wrestling season, I get to the NCAA tournament, and I would do my best to not feel the pressure and let everybody else choke on it. I would do my best to do that. But the reality was you just weren't wrestling as good at the end of the season as you were at the beginning. It's long. You're tired. It's a lot of hotels. It's a lot of travel. It's a lot of practices. It's a lot of early mornings. It's a lot of weigh-ins. It's a lot of everything. And you get tired. And this isn't just that I'm personalizing. I could look around. The guys that win the NCAA tournament are the right guy. But 2 through 8 could be anybody because everybody's so tired. We had a guy within this country named Brandon Egum. Brandon Egum was an alternate for the World Championships behind Chael Sonnen, name you guys have probably heard. Chael decided to not go at the last minute. Egum gets pulled off the bench, flies out there, but he has a completely clear head. He didn't study the field. He didn't do the acclimation in the training camps. He didn't know he was going to go. They pull him off the bench. He gets second in the world. Just a couple of seasons ago, this happened with Joe Colon for you American wrestling fans, but Joe Colon was an alternate. Top guy pulls out. Colon gets sent without having the pressures, without studying, without going through the training camps. Shows up, he ends up bringing home a medal. And I could give you countless stories like that, where a guy who comes in with a clear head has a significant advantage. Significant. Now, if the work's not there, the whole story I just told doesn't take place. The work has to be there. But when I'm looking at Masvidal, who was able to make weight without the benefit of even a training facility because he was stuck in a hotel room, and I did media with Masvidal. I don't know if Masvidal has ever been more accessible than he was for media for his last fight. He got a hold of me, and I'm writing him back, well, man, what time is it there? And it was like 3 a.m, and he wanted to do media now. And I can't remember what time that was here in Portland, but I called the crew. We went in, flipped the lights on, fired up the studio. Hey, Joe, what do you want to talk about? And he came and did the interview in a bathrobe. He'd just gotten out of the sauna. He was exhausted and he was tired, but he was getting absolutely everything in. So when I bring to you that I know he didn't have all of the benefits of weight cutting and he still made it, I just have my own opinion that he wasn't as out of round as he's been saying. And I can also share for you, I've gone through countless training camps where my first week and my first 3 weeks, I was much better than I was 10 and 11 and 12 weeks. I just was. It was too much. It was too much of a grind. It was too many guys, too many days, too much advice, getting pulled in all sorts of different directions, and you just wear down. It's extremely important to be able to peak. One thing that Mike Dolce has, and as soon as he taught me this, I did it for every single fight, but it was 3 days, 72 hours, 3 days of absolute rest. Air-conditioned room where you're not breaking a sweat. Don't leave that couch. Nothing goes in your hand but a remote control. 3 days of absolute rest as a way to recover. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hey, anybody can grab 3 days. Well, I understand that, but not if they don't know that recipe. And I can tell you it's a very big difference, but that's just from a physical standpoint. It's the mental wear. I share this with you because I like the story. I like the Masvidal will be ready. I like that Masvidal has the balls to say, if you allow me to do this, I'll never make another excuse. Just give me this one chance. I love that hunger. I love the fact that the biggest star in the sport basically got down and begged for this opportunity. I respect that. I respect that hunger. Don't be stunned if the Chael curse that has been very real throughout 2021 with absolutely no avail, don't be surprised if that doesn't get broken here, though. Because there is more to these stories and those training camps and all of these things at these big luxury gyms. He was able to make weight. He was in pretty good shape. He pushed for 5 rounds. Threw a lot of kicks, didn't have a pressure on himself. He didn't have a pressure because very little was expected of him. It was little was expected of him because he didn't have the training camp. Now a lot's expected to him. Now he's fighting at home. Make sure you take that into account. You want to talk about pressure, guys, and the only reason pressure matters, pressure creates a stress and stress creates a fatigue. That's it. You'll hear sports guys all the time talking about who's got the pressure. Who gives a goddamn? Well, I'll tell you who. I'll tell you why it does matter. When you get into something like this that is so cardiovascular based, championship rounds, who can be there at the end of the night? Who can go harder than his opponent? When you get into something like that, pressure matters because it creates a stress, which is a chemical release in your brain that can produce lactic acid, which can fatigue you. And you now have a guy who's fighting at home and has removed all excuses. Full respect. Full respect. But you still have to wonder, what is the consequence of that going to be? Everything in life and every choice, it's a trade. It's an absolute trade. There's no such thing as home court advantage in fighting. It is a home court disadvantage. You've told all your buddies your whole life what a tough guy you are, and now you're going to have to walk out with your shirt off and prove it. It's one of those things. It's one of those things. And there was a gap between these two the first time. It was a competitive fight. I saw it. You guys saw it. 2 of the judges had all 5 rounds for Usman. 1 of the judges had it 4-1. That one judge was wrong. It was a clean sweep for Usman, but it was competitive. There was a gap. And there was a gap that I do not believe a training camp can make up. And even if the training camp helped, don't forget Masvidal has sat out. He's done media tours. He's lived the good life. He's enjoyed stardom. I hope, I would expect. Usman, meanwhile, made that walk 9 weeks ago. We don't get better at something as human beings by not doing it. And all the wind appears to be blowing in Usman's favor. And Usman is one of these guys that you're better off to not make angry. Contrary to what a lot of guys will try to do in fighting, where they try to get under somebody's skin or they try to evoke an emotion as a way of fatiguing them, as a way of distracting them. Every now and then you meet that rare animal who's a lot more dangerous when he's wounded. And Usman's angry. And Usman has a chip. And Usman has trained differently. He didn't do any of those things before. So even though Masvidal was absent at training camp, Usman is plus a very different training camp. Great fight. Excited to see it. I believe the Chael curse comes to an end. I am taking Usman.